Thanks, Helen, for that report. Time to look at what's in the dailies this morning. We will begin with the Daily Nation. This is what we have on the very front page of the Daily Nation. Counties paid 35 billion to ghost workers, and that's the salary over 5 years. You have a number of faces there. Vihiga County, 426 ghost workers. The governor, Wilbur Otichilo. In Mombasa, 300 billion Kenya shillings. Talking about 1,000 ghost workers. The governor, Hassan Joho, and Migori County under Okoth Obado, 314 ghost workers. Well, that's the phony salary accounts haunt governors. Several audits revealed shocking details of theft in counties, with more than 35 billion looted by rogue officials who paid monthly salaries to thousands of fake staff for years, despite a 2014 biometric audit weeding out over 12,000 ghost workers. Who stole the money, and will they get away with it? That's a full splash on pages 6 and 7 of the Daily Nation. Still adjacent to that, 19 dead in plane crash, 26 survived. That's on page 20. The dead include cabin crew and passengers. But by last evening, it was still not clear whether the reported fatalities included part of the rescue team. All right, let's just get inside to see what's happening inside. And this is another big story here. Ruto to address climate talks as Africa suffers heartbreak. Well, President William Ruto is today expected to address the world's biggest climate meeting in Africa. Yesterday suffered a major heartbreak on day one of the two-week conference. Yesterday, delegates from all over the world attending the 2022 UNCCC in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt were informed that an agreement had been reached after intense negotiations to have the issue of loss and damage as an agenda to discuss whether polluting rich nations should compensate poor countries who are the most vulnerable to climate change for their suffering, but no later than 2024. So that's a big issue here. The bid to have loss and damage included in the agenda has been put off to a later date. And this is one of the biggest issues that certainly, especially African countries, were hoping to be part of the conversation in COP27. Well, Egypt Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry has also been elected the COP27 president. That's the foreign minister there in Egypt, and you can see his face. Of course, this happening as the COP27 is also underway in Egypt. This is considered, by the way, to be one of the largest COPs ever in terms of attendance, with more than 50,000 attendees set to participate in the event that shall reach its climax on the 18th of November. We'll certainly be digging much deeper into this later on in the day. All right, and another big issue here. This is what has dominated at least the weekend. KQ striking pilots will face the music. Seeing a lot of stranded passengers. The picture there, though, is at the Moi International Airport in Mombasa on Saturday as the strike by the Kenya Airways pilots kicked off. Most passengers who had booked KQ flights to Nairobi were diverted to Jumbo Jet following the strike. Now, at least 56 flights have been cancelled as a strike by Kenya Airways pilots entered its second day yesterday, with the National Airlines management saying it will initiate disciplinary action against all the pilots for absconding duty. The KQ Chief People Officer Tom Shivo yesterday said that the management has initiated disciplinary action against the pilots who did defy that order by the Chief Executive Officer Alan Kilavuka to resume work. There are a number of issues that the KQ is facing right now. One of the biggest issues, the financial cost. Earlier, KQ had announced the resumption of flights to Nairobi and Tebe, but despite that announcement and Nairobi-Mombasa routes, KQ had scheduled a flight from Nairobi to Entebbe and back to Nairobi, and another from Nairobi to Mombasa, as well as another from Nairobi to Lusaka. However, it is unclear if the other flights were made, but a spot check at the Mombasa International Airport showed that no KQ plane landed or took off at the scheduled time. All right. So this is another interesting report. Also very important to note is that yesterday, Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen said that the government is committed to resolving the impasse. He urged the pilots to be mindful of the consequences of defying a court order and to urgently return to work. All right. So that's another story we are following up on. You will be at the KES also just trying to understand exactly what the situation looks today. And another issue still on the same team, also expected to look into officers' pay formed within 2 weeks, says Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. We had that report earlier on, a little bit away from KES. Of course, the government will in the next 2 weeks set up a task force to review the terms of service for security officers with a view to addressing their remuneration and conditions of work. The Deputy President announcing that the President was committed to delivering on his promise of improving the working conditions of security personnel. Let's move forward. Let's see what else we have in the Daily Nation very quickly. All right. Another story here. One of the biggest indeed. That's what's on the, sadly what has happened yesterday. Murkomen makes the SGR contract public, spilling the beans. Transport Cabinet Secretary had promised to reveal the contract details during his vetting. Now, the standard gauge railway contract signed by Kenya gives sweeping powers to its Chinese lenders, including requiring arbitration of any dispute to be held in Beijing. Documents released by the government after years of secrecy have shown. In the contract, which helped President Uhuru Kenyatta build what was Kenya's most expensive infrastructure project, Kenya was bound to keep the details of the deal under lock and key. The reason why authorities, including the former head of state, refused to make the contract public even after a court order. The contract was yesterday made public by the Transport and Infrastructure Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen, ending years of speculation on exactly what the country had signed. It's a full splash there on exactly what we need to know in terms of that SGR contract. Moving on, Konza Technopolis will drive digital economy, Owalo says. Well, the Information, Communication and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo has described Konza Technopolis, currently under construction, as the engine that will drive Kenya's growth in the digital space. The newly appointed ICT Cabinet Secretary celebrated by Kenyatta University alumni in Nairobi. Also, in terms of appointments, Surgeon wants vetting of PS nominees halted. A Nakuru-based surgeon wants the High Court to stop the vetting of principal secretaries nominated by President William Ruto for lack of gender and regional balance. This is Dr. Benjamin Magare Gikenyi, who is based in Nakuru Level 6 Hospital, claiming that the list of the 51 nominees announced by the President on the 2nd of November is illegal for lacking inclusivity. In that case, very quickly filed through a certificate of urgency, the doctor wants the court to restrain the National Assembly from vetting the nominees pending hearing and determination of the case. Well, remember, the vetting is expected to begin today as well. That's another big story we're following up on the same. Okay, so let's move forward. Still on the Daily Nation. What do we have? Okay, let me get my paper right. Ghost staff haunt counties 9 years after devolution. What a report there. As weary taxpayers complain about poor services in counties, hospitals without drugs and patients sharing beds are pet peevers. Audit report shows that more than 35 billion, correct, get that right, 35 billion Kenya shillings has been looted over the years through ghost workers as the theft continues. The internal staff and payroll audits have become a routine undertaking by every new county administration that usually reveals how billions of shillings are being looted through non-existent staff. However, the new sheriffs in town hardly seal the loopholes, and subsequent probes have often revealed growing theft blamed for the runaway wage bill that has seen counties violate the statutory ceiling on spending on salaries. All right, so you can get this whole report here on the 6th page of the Daily Nation. It is certainly another big issue in terms of the counties and the money that is being lost in the counties in terms of ghost workers in those counties. Still on page 7, still the same report there. We have a number of counties that have been listed. Remember, this was the audit that was done. It is a payroll scam, and the county's reliance on manual payrolls and employees' records are certainly to blame. Okay, moving forward, we shall push drought-resistant crops. That is Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mithika Linturi, who says the government will increase the adoption of drought-resistant crops by farmers as well as new farming technologies as long-term solutions to food insecurity. This as the former Mary Senator faulted the Jubilee government for failing to put in place measures and policies to mitigate drought in the country following seasons of poor rainfall. The KES said the Kenya Kwanza administration will focus on weaning Kenyans from overdependence on rain-fed agriculture in order to ensure constant production of food through irrigation and farming. Okay, very quickly, let's just wind up on the Daily Nation, but another report here on the 10th page. Prosecuting officers will clean up service. This is what the DPP Nordin Haji says. The prosecution of officers accused of involvement in enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings will help to clean up the police service. DPP Nordin Haji dismissing claims that he is targeting the police and insisting that the prosecutions were meant to weed out unprofessional officers. This assertion coming a few days after the arraignment of 9 police officers from the disbanded Special Services Unit in connection with the disappearance of 2 Indian nationals, that is Mohammed Said Sami and Zulfikar Ahmed, and their Kenyan taxi driver Nicodemus Mwania. The DPP has also given the go-ahead to prosecute 12 senior police officers for the killing of Baby Pendo and other atrocities committed during the 2017 post-election chaos in Kisumu. All right. This following up on what exactly was happening, at least for the better part of last week. And finally, misery as bandits hold sway in Valley of Blood and Death. Well, this is a report by Duncan Khaemba. We will be just listening to that report very shortly in a moment before I engage my panelists and guests this morning. And allow me to just introduce them to you right now. We are being joined by the Member of Parliament from Samburu West, Naisula Lesuda. A very good morning. Karibu sana to the program. Good morning. Fantastic. And Joseph Samal, the Isiolo North Member of Parliament. Karibu sana. And also virtually, who will be joining us in a short while, is Martin Mavenjina, who is the Senior Program Advisor, Transitional Justice, Kenya Human Rights Commission. A very good morning to you, Martin, joining us all the way from Wajir County. All right, so we will get to the conversation in just a moment. But just to get, your view on what has been the biggest story right now, apart from this, and it's right on the 2nd page. So this happened yesterday evening. Just a quick, remark on that, because, you're part of the leadership in this country. So you have the Cabinet Secretary, Transport Cabinet Secretary Murkomen, making the SGR contract public. And, he had promised to reveal the contract details during his vetting exercise in Parliament. What do you make of this? I'll begin with you, Joseph. Mheshimiwa.
I think it has come at the right time. Oversight in government. It's the process, and I think it is in order. It is in order.
Yeah. Very quickly, Mheshimiwa Naisula.
I think
shocking to see this.
Kenyans have been asking for it, and also leaders, and now it is out. Right. So we'll be interrogating it further
to see exactly what is inside.
Yes.
All right, fantastic. All right, so let's just quickly take a look at very front page of the Business Daily. This is what we have. Kenya scores big in bid to raise taxes on global firms, and the deal seeks to impose list rate at 15%. Enforcement date set for January 2024. Also, new MPs take fight for hefty allowances to SRC's doorstep, and Airtel Kenya's net loss widens to 1.7 billion shillings. On Taifa Leo, this is what we have. Nani msema kweli, wana Zozania, and you have a number of issues there coming up in terms of food, security, the NSSF issue, judiciary, as well as taxation. And this is the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who has been speaking on a number of these issues. All right, on the East African, this is what we have on the very front page. DRC, Uhuru re-energizes peace process. All parties to the process agree to adopt model that involves community leaders and other partners as he proposed. And also on the Standard, very front page, of course, that's been quite the talking point since yesterday evening. Truth on SGR billions, as the government pledges to extend the standard gauge railway to Kisumu and eventually Malaba. The controversy around the initial work seemed to be here to stay, and a peek through the contract between Kenya and China to construct the railway shows the country could have sold its soul, or is it? So that is what we will also be looking at later in the day. Remember also COP27, like I'd mentioned, the world meets in Egypt amid warning of climate disaster. All right, let's now take a look at that report there by Duncan Khaemba. And bandit attacks and cattle rustling in Kenya's north are not new, and hundreds of lives have suddenly been lost and thousands of livestock stolen in a vice that has left communities living in the Suguta and Kerio valleys desperate. So